Hi everybody, and welcome to Lovefraud Live. Happy New Year. I've got really big news tonight. My first book, called Lovefraud, is now available as an audio book. And tonight I'm going to tell you part of my story, including the 6 manipulation strategies that my sociopathic ex-husband used within the first 6 minutes of meeting me. I'm Donna Andersen, author of Lovefraud.com, and this is the show where you learn to recognize and escape sociopaths, narcissists, psychopaths, and other disordered people. If you have any questions, send them to me by chat. Okay, so on to the 6 ploys. Let me set the scene by reading you a short passage from my book, Lovefraud. I met my ex-husband online, and we emailed back and forth for about a month before we made arrangements to meet for breakfast. So here's what I wrote in Chapter 3. I drove through the morning sunshine, a half-hour inland, to Mays Landing, and arrived at the Courthouse Cafe at 10 o'clock. Right on time. I walked into the restaurant, and where only a vinyl booth by the front window was occupied. It was James and his stuff. I sat down. James looked like a typical Scotsman. His face was somewhat round and broad, and his complexion was ruddy. His eyes were small and blue, and his ears were large and protruding. His hair, what there was of it, was brown and straight. So was his beard, which was trimmed, close-cropped, and trimmed to make a little open square around his mouth. He wore a dark green polo shirt with a small embroidered logo, ABC Sports. The shirt was obviously chosen to impress me. Beside him in the booth was a gray canvas briefcase with an embroidered emblem on it, Congressional Medal of Honor Society. In front of him, on the table, was a pile of photos. They were wedding pictures. This, I thought to myself, was something I'd never seen. "Finally, we meet," James said to me, smiling broadly. "I've been wanting to meet you ever since I received your first email while I was in Australia." "I've been looking forward to meeting you as well," I replied. After more small talk and placing an order with the waitress, James reached for the pictures. "These are from my wedding to Gail, who passed away," James explained softly, with a touch of sadness in his voice. "She was already 40. And it was her first wedding. So she wanted everything. The long gown, the big cake. We got married in a 200-year-old church in South Carolina. We even had an honor guard and walked under an archway of swords as we left the church." I looked at the pictures. Gail was an attractive woman with short dark hair and hazel eyes. She wore a champagne-colored satin gown cut in a full traditional style, and a small spray of flowers in her hair. Very classy. Okay, so let's analyze what happened in this first meeting. Right from the get-go, James Montgomery was manipulating me. Now, I didn't know this at the time. It was only afterwards, when I learned the truth about him and the truth about sociopaths, that I could see his strategies. But here they are, the 6 ploys my ex-husband used within the first 6 minutes of meeting me. Ploy number 1, the ABC Sports logo on his shirt. Now, this one was obvious. Even without knowing about sociopaths, I figured it out right away. James and I had been emailing for a month before we met. During that time, I told him that my background was journalism. He told me that he was a founder of a Hollywood TV network, which turned out to be highly exaggerated. He just wanted to present himself as a player in journalism and TV. He wasn't. So where did he get the shirt? Well, he did live in Los Angeles for a while, so he probably went to an ABC studio and bought it in a gift shop. Ploy number 2, the Congressional Medal of Honor Society patch on his briefcase. James had told me by email that he served in Vietnam with the Australian Army and had won the Victoria Cross. Now, this is Australia's highest military honor and the equivalent of the American Congressional Medal of Honor. This was also highly exaggerated, but the emblem made it look like he was, indeed, a member of the Congressional Medal of Honor Society, which would have backed up his story. Again, he probably bought the patch in a gift shop or sent away for it by mail order. Ploy number 3, obvious enthusiasm to meet me. James made no secret of the fact that he was thrilled to meet me. He said he'd wanted to meet me ever since he received my first email. Now, I had spent many years dating, and I'd met many guys through dating ads. James's behavior was highly unusual. Normally, when you meet a guy for the first time, he's more reserved. He wants to check you out, evaluate your personality, evaluate your looks, see if he feels any attraction. Not James. He came right out and said he was interested in me. This was actually the first step of his love bombing. Ploy number 4, photos of his wedding to his previous wife. Even as clueless as I was about sociopaths, when James pulled out his wedding pictures, I thought it was weird. He had already told me that he was a widower, but still, this was a strange thing to do, unless you realize his strategy. James's objective was to present a good reference, another woman who found him to be suitable as a marriage partner. It was supposed to be his dead wife's vote of confidence, so that I would feel confidence as well. Ploy number 5. James sadly brought up his deceased wife. This was a blatant pity play. Martha Stout, author of The Sociopath Next Door, says that the most obvious warning sign that someone is a sociopath is that they appeal to your sympathy. Now, I've identified a lot of other warning signs, but the pity play is definitely a big one, and that's exactly what this man was doing. He was trying to portray himself as the poor bereaved man who had lost his wife, so I'd feel sorry for him. Of course, it was sad that she had died, but James's real objective was to manipulate me. And finally, ploy number 6, describing his wonderful wedding. James told me about the 200-year-old church, the honor guard, the archway of swords, all of which were, again, highly exaggerated. But he was painting a picture of a fairy tale wedding, which would lead to a fairy tale future. This is one of the primary ways that sociopaths seduce us. They promise to make our dreams come true. So, there you have it. Within the first 6 minutes or so of meeting me in person, James Montgomery employed 6 different strategies to seduce me. If you want to know what happened next, it's all in my new audiobook. And, I hadn't read the book in a long time, but as I was recording it over the summer, I was like, wow, this story is really unbelievable. Lovefraud is a cross between a true crime novel and a spiritual journey. I explain not only how I got involved with the sociopath, but why. So the audiobook is available on Amazon and Audible, and links are in the description below. So, let's see what kind of questions we had. There were questions being posed even before we got started, which is terrific. So I'm going to scroll up to the top. The first question came from Snowflakes, and she said that she noticed the sociopath was distracted, dissociated most of the time, and switched it on if he was on the phone. So how did he do the switches? Usually when sociopaths are talking on the phone, they're in manipulation mode. They are talking to somebody because they're trying to achieve some kind of an objective. Sociopaths don't call to chat. They don't call to ask how you are or anything like that. There's always an objective. And so that's why he turned it on and became animated, because there was something he was trying to achieve, something he was trying to convince somebody to do, something along those lines. Whereas when a sociopath, often, not always, but often, when a sociopath is in your presence and there isn't any immediate objective that he's trying to do, trying to get you to do something or give him something or loan him money or whatever, they just can't be bothered. I mean, they don't have a desire to interact on an emotional or a relational level. Everything has an objective. There's always an ulterior motive. So if there's nothing that he's trying to get from you or scam or anything like that at a particular time, well, there's nothing to do. So he's just distracted. You may have noticed this person maybe going online a lot or texting, because he's talking to somebody else, or sometimes they play video games. That could be a big thing. But the idea is that usually on the phone, they're in manipulation mode. They have an objective, they're trying to achieve something, and so they turn on the charm or the convincing or the authority or whatever it is. But that's the basic reason. All right, so let's see what else we might have. Okay, so Sui R says, "Dear Donna, do you know why the ex-wife died?" Yeah, sort of. Actually, I think what happened is that she was stressed to death. My ex-husband was involved with multiple women. He was involved with 6 different women during the time I was with him, which was only 2.5 years. There were 20 or 30 women before me. There were more women after me. And essentially what this man did was live off of women. He was a parasite. So he essentially got in a situation. I mean, it did look, and there were people who thought that there was foul play involved, with his previous wife, because she died suddenly when they were both home alone. So there were definitely people who thought that. I don't know if he actually committed murder, but he certainly created such a stressful environment that she ended up having essentially a heart attack. So it was kind of a delayed killing, I guess you could say. But it was probably stress related, combined with family history of heart problems. But even the woman's mother, who I interviewed, and I tell her story too. I mean, that's what's interesting about this book, is that I tell not only what happened to me, but what happened to these other people, and how the stories all interrelated. And so that's why it portrays that I wasn't the only victim. I mean, this is how this man lived his life. And here's all these women who are telling their stories about the same man. So that's essentially what happened. Monica says, is she really dead? Oh, yeah, absolutely. As I said, I interviewed her parents. They were heartbroken. It was all very sad. So yes, she is definitely gone. All right, let's see. Susie Bessie says, does a day go by that you don't think of him? The thought of what he did to you constantly haunt you? Mine is in my head every day. No. He's gone. Luckily, I have a lot of distance. It's been 20 years since I divorced James Montgomery. We met in 1996. We're together for a couple of years. Then I got my divorce in early 2000. So it's 21 years. So a lot of time has passed. I can say that when I first left him, yeah, I mean, I was obsessed. I was trying to figure out what was going on. I did contact some of the other women, which is another whole element of the story, and you know, what we did to work together to try and figure out what was going on. So there was a time when, yes, it was obsessive. So if it's been recent that you've left the guy, or even within a year or two, it's not unusual to be focused on it and obsessed about it. A big reason is because what they do is they kind of take away your confidence in being able to know what's real and what's not real, you know, because they create so many lies. They have a double life. You know, they're gaslighting you all the time. So that messes with your sense of stability and your sense of safety. So often you want to try and figure out what the truth was, just so you can begin to feel like you can trust your perceptions again. So if it's been recent that you left the person, or that it broke apart, then it's very common to be obsessing about it. It's actually one of the stages of getting over it. But for me, no, it's been a long time. I've remarried. You know, my husband and I will be celebrating our 17th wedding anniversary next month, and I'm good. You know, you can recover from this. You absolutely can recover. It's work. You do have to deal with the emotional pain of the experience, but if you do the work, you can definitely have a better life on the other side of it. Okay. Okay, I have a question that from Felicia says, have you had other narcs in your life? Once I realized what they were, because of my experience with my ex-husband, I realized that yes. Before I got involved with him, there were two other guys who were disordered. Those stories are also in the book. And again, I mean, at the time, I didn't realize it. But looking back, after I knew what I was looking at, then I could definitely see it. Now I have radar for it. I mean, of course, the problem with these disordered people is that there's millions of them out there. I mean, absolutely millions. You know, we're probably about 12% of the population, somewhere around 12%, depending on whose estimates you're looking at, are disordered. So, you know, it's like 35 million people in the United States. So they're everywhere. But now, you know, I pick it up right away. You know, I pick it up when somebody is being manipulative or being dishonest. And that's one of the benefits of learning what they are and what the warning signs are, because, you know, we're going to run across them. There's just simply too many of them in our lives or in the world. And so we need to be able to spot them. Okay. CC says, I'm having trouble understanding gaslighting. Can you give a few examples? Gaslighting means that the person is trying to convince you to doubt your perceptions. I mean, the ultimate objective is to make you crazy. I mean, literally lose your mind. And you may have heard that it comes from this movie from, I think it's 1942 or something like that, called Gaslight. And you could, you should watch the movie, because it really, lays it all out exactly what the person is doing. But in that movie, what happened was that a guy was trying to steal these jewels from his wife. He's got this young wife, is the long story. And so what he would do was he would move things, like he would move the picture and then say to her, "Why did you move the picture?" And of course she didn't move the picture, so she's like, "I didn't move the picture." "You did move the picture. I mean, what's the matter with you? Do you forget when you move the picture?" So, they lie. They do things and then ask you why you did it. And, it's funny, because when I first saw the movie and I saw this thing about the pictures, and I'm like, well, that's a great example for a movie, but nobody does this. And they do. I mean, several people have told me that they were involved with somebody who would move things. I mean, a big thing is moving your keys. So they take the keys and hide them from you, and you're going around the house, looking for the keys. Where are my keys? All this other stuff. And then finally, the keys come out exactly where they're supposed to be, and the person says to you, "Well, what's the matter with you? The keys, are you crazy? They're right there." And so they actually do things to try and make it so that they doubt your perceptions. You will have a conversation, and they'll say, "Okay, well, we'll go to the store tomorrow." So tomorrow comes, and you say, "Okay, what time do you want to go to the store?" And he'll say, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, you said we would go to the store today." "No, I didn't. I didn't say that." "You did. You said we would go." "I did not say we were going to the store. What's the matter with you? Are you hearing things?" So those are some examples of what happens in gaslighting. Okay. Oh, Lucy says, "I love your books, Donna. They're really good information. Thank you." I'm glad they're helping you. That's really good. Okay, so looks like I think I got the questions. So anyhow, thank you all. We'll be back on schedule now for having these videos on Tuesdays. I enjoyed my time off over the holidays. Hope you all did too. I hope everybody's going to have a great new year. Last year was miserable for all of us, and I certainly hope it'll be better this year. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me tonight, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.